Cyborg in the first defense of her UFC featherweight championship fight. And I thought she answered a lot of questions tonight, going 5 hard minutes and having to cover a lot of distance in her own right, chasing down Holly Holm. I thought it was a clean performance. I thought she didn't force it. I thought she heeded the advice of her corner when they thought maybe the first 2 rounds were pretty close, even though I didn't necessarily. I just think this is another feather in the cap of Cris Cyborg and the type of signature win that her resume really was thirsty for.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, Cyborg showed those 3 Ps that I talked about on Twitter: patience, pressure, and power. You know, she had that in spades. And you know, when you're trading against someone like Holly Holm, she was inviting that. And I thought Holly kind of made a mistake of maybe showing a little bit too much offense, and I know everyone's going to say, well, that's what she gets criticized for before, but she is a counter striker, and Cyborg was just very patient, waiting for those shots, backing her up repeatedly, and landing just the heavier blow time and time again. You know, if there was one possible criticism for Cyborg was saying, hey, listen, we haven't seen her really go into the 25-minute range, 20-minute range before. You know, maybe she can get tired. Maybe Holly can gas her out. Was not the case. It looked like Cyborg was the fresher fighter. She is a very well-conditioned athlete. She made the weight without any problem, it seemed. Seemed to be in good spirits the whole time, and I thought it was a smart performance there from Cyborg as well.
Yeah, she looked like she could have fought for an hour, and we're going to get into it even deeper because now joining us on the guest line is one Ray Longo. Let's get to him. We had 2 listeners check into rehab because they didn't get a Ray Longo minute on Christmas Day. It's true. They love the guy, and 2018 on the first day of the year begins with Raymond Peter Longo here live on the Anakin Florian podcast. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. Listen, I'm excited. We're coming out swinging in 2018.
Oh, good. Look at how good he looks today, Kenny. And again, apologize to those who are not ingesting this with their eyes. He's wearing yellow, which dovetails very nicely with your complexion, Ray. So did you do anything last night? Ken Flo was drinking root beer floats. I was asleep at 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
I didn't do much more than that, and I stayed home, and I got to bed a little late, but uneventful as most of my New Year's are. But what counts is how eventful the day is after.
Yes.
That's right.
This is exciting.
I can barely fucking sit still. It's so exciting. You did listen in to some of that conversation we were having about Cris Cyborg and Holly Holm. A couple of the judges saw this as a closer fight than Kenny and I did, 48-47 times 2, and then a 49-46 in there. Did you see the pay-per-view over the weekend? And if so, any thoughts on Cris Cyborg's title defense?
Yeah, I did see it, and I'll tell you, I have nothing wrong with 48-47. I did think Holly Holm did a good job, and I think she could have did a better job because there were times when, you know, she was moving to her right when she was kind of spinning her that I thought she gave Cyborg a little trouble at times in the first 2 rounds, and I think that's where they're getting it from. But I thought Holly Holm did a good job, but I agree. I think the one takeaway with Cyborg I had was for a person that's really used to finishing fights quick, she did show the patience, and like what Kenny said, she's very powerful, poised, and I thought that was a big takeaway. She didn't feel the pressure to go out there and make a mistake and try to end that fight early, but she did lump her up pretty good. But I thought it was a competitive fight. I really did, and I think the key was, you didn't know if she was going to get tired in the later rounds, and maybe that would be something, but she did a great job with the pressure, and obviously she hits like a freight train because she did lump her face up, pretty well, it looked like. So it was, but I thought it was a really entertaining fight. I enjoyed the fight.
Ray, I'd like to see her take on someone like a Megan Anderson next, but for me, I thought Holly Holm did enough to warrant a rematch possibly in the future. Do you think she did enough? Would you want to see that fight again?
I personally believe that Holly Holm could make just a couple of adjustments, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think just with the movement alone, I think she could win that fight. I really do. I think for some reason she abandoned it and she started just going linear, running in with her head up a little bit. But when she was turning her and hitting and moving and getting an angle, I thought she did a pretty good job. I could see that, as really making for an intriguing rematch. Because there was a time in either the first or second round, I go, this could be a long night for Cyborg. And then slowly but surely, she started just running in, I think getting a little too frantic, like you said, for no reason. I mean, I think the problem I'm having for a girl that has 18 boxing belts or championship belts, it's just not relaxed. I mean, you've seen fighters that are champions, and they could stand in front of you and make you look stupid. I mean, so she's, for a person with that many fights, I still think she fights a little frantic. I'd like to see her, like you said, even though she might get criticized, a little more counterpunching and maybe keeping that fight on the outside and using her reach a little better. I thought she ran in, and that's where Cyborg was able to do a lot of the damage.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And I would like to see her just kind of fight that relaxed, composed way.
I mean, again,
that
Kenny,
her experience would dictate.
With that many belts, it is crazy. She just seemed like, and I know it's kind of her thing, but I think she should have the experience to really move that, because I don't know. I saw spurts of something that I thought would have given Cyborg fits, but she just didn't stick with it.
I agree with you, man.
I was just saying on Holly Holm, Kenny, 33-2-3 as a pro boxer, multiple world titles at 140 pounds, 147, and 154, right? But only 5 times did she make the walk in boxing and not win. And she's now lost 4 of her last 5. And it's very interesting for me to hear you and Ray break down this performance by Holly Holm, because there was a lot of good in it. Physically in the clinch, she showed things against Cris Cyborg, even if it was a stall tactic, right? She was able to reverse Cyborg a couple times and at least give Cris some things to think about. But I guess I'm not at the front of the line necessarily for the rematch, even though this has been the most competitive fight recently we have seen Cris Cyborg in, because I don't know. I guess I have to watch it back, and I hope my call wasn't too one-sided if the fight was closer than maybe I thought it was. But I just didn't feel like there was anything appreciable in terms of the sustained damage going from Holm to Cris at all.
Yeah, and that's why I was a little surprised. Tyron Woodley was watching the fight, and he said, this is a closer fight than a lot of people think. I think, I have Holly winning 2 rounds. I thought she won the first round, and that was it. I thought Cyborg won rounds 2 through 5. However, whatever it is, I thought that, absolutely, Holly could have fought a better fight. As close as that fight was, I thought she could have found a little bit better angles. I thought she could have countered a lot better. But more than anything else, and this is what kind of you're alluding to, you talk about her boxing record. She has experience in kickboxing now, is a ton of experience in fighting in big fights in the UFC. But I have yet to see her calm and composed in a UFC fight. Mm-hmm. And I think that when she starts to really see the octagon as her home, as her place where she can go out there and just kind of have fun and be creative and be the great martial artist that she is, I think a lot of those people that beat her, a lot of those close fights, I think Hollywood would win a lot of those fights. I really do. I think that we haven't seen the best Holly Holm yet. Regardless of all of her great performances, I still think that she still hasn't shown that kind of mastery level where when a person walks into their domain, they own it. They own that space, and she hasn't owned that space. And I think that even when she beat Betch Gohea, she knocked her out. You see, like, all that tension, she kind of just lets it go, and she's, it seems like there's just a lot of pressure
thank God,
on her.
Can I go home?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you ever got anxiety for training sessions. I mean, you and I have talked a lot about broadcast television and how some of the nerves we had early on, we wish maybe we could get them back because it might be a performance enhancer. Yeah. Did you ever have anxiety for maybe some sparring sessions? But every day she has anxiety, and then once she gets warming up at Jackson Wink, it goes away. I think there's some benefit to that, but I just, you're right, man. Very, very tense individual in a lot of respects.
Yeah, no, and you could see it. It's very apparent, and obviously it's worked for her. She has succeeded at a very high level despite that. But I think that would be the next level to kind of, or that would be the next thing to take her to the next level, would be to kind of find a way to shed that pressure, to shed that tension, because she really is such a talented human being that I feel like we have yet to see the best Holly Holm in the octagon. But with that said, she is fighting amazing fighters. I mean, she is fighting,
of course,
an amazing fighter in Cyborg. Cyborg is extremely good, but I think that Holly showed that she could be able to win that fight. It would not be easy, but she has the skills and she has the capabilities to perhaps win that fight. But Cyborg, that's what makes her such a special fighter. That's what makes her so dominant.